Good evening, race fans. Thank you for tuning into DRL TV. My name is Getty Buckner. I'll be joined tonight by Martin Wenzel, and it will be our pleasure to bring you live action of the DRL Cup Series. Once a year, the Dynasty Racing League travels to Charlotte Motor Speedway to host the DRL All-Star Race. This event showcases the skills of the best drivers that Dynasty Racing League has to offer. The rules are unique, the racing is intense, and DRL TV will be with you every step of the way as we find out who will be king of the 2019 DRL All-Star event. Alongside me, as always, is the voice of the DRL Cup Series, Mr. Martin Wenzel. Now, Martin, we have the best of the best here tonight. No points, no playoff implications, and a completely different set of rules. What excites you most about tonight's event?
I think it's the different kind of races. I mean, there's a sort of a stage racing element that we don't see usually. Obviously, in real life NASCAR they have stages now, but in our league we don't, and so you get a little bit of different situation. They invert the field after that first stage, so the guy. I think that's the whole field. I heard them talking about that, isn't it just third on back and the first two stay up there? But I think it's the whole field. So if you finish the first stage and first, well, you're starting at the end of the field, and it just makes everything a lot crazier than a regular race. We have all these guys in this race too. We got Cup Series guys, but it's everyone who's invited to run in the Cup Series this season because we've expanded the field, obviously. For the regular season just because of participation rates. So we do have some truck guys and some Grand National guys. We see Ryan Hesgard out there from the Grand National Series. We see Richard Springer from the Truck Series. So it's gonna be interesting. We got all three series represented in this Cup Series All-Star race. So it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, and just for the fans, to lower their anxiety, we'll do the best we can to keep you up to date with all the rules. Just so you know that qualifying will be as it normally would be. Single hot lap qualifying event is scheduled. And then as stage one will be 30 laps, no pit stops, even if there is a yellow. And then as Martin just mentioned, that the field will be inverted. So a lot of different things going on tonight that a lot of, most of these drivers aren't used to. Most of these drivers, it seems like, looking at the list here, Martin, at least almost half, this is going to be their first All-Star race ever. We had one last year, obviously, and we had different names, near the top, and it was a completely different package. I know it's almost like beating a dead horse now. We mention it every single week, but this is the first time we're going to Charlotte with this new A-car package that iRacing and NASCAR has rolled out with the increased downforce, extended spoiler, and the tapered spacer. So a lot of unknowns here tonight, Martin. Now, just to remind everyone, there aren't any points tonight, but we will go over the point standings just in case anyone has missed the regular season so far. Wade Hustad leading, has those 2 wins in his back pocket for for when we start to see the first round of the playoffs. Thomas Harmon having a great start of the year. Chris Lucky, Chris James, and Joseph Helt are your top 5. Now, Martin, talking about expanding, you talked about expanding the overall roster for Cup. We do have a couple guys in here tonight. One, I know that the Grand National Series that is on Tuesdays is represented here tonight. I don't think the Truck Series is, but obviously the guys that run this every week, week in, week out, we've been to Texas already, we've been to Auto Club. They're going to be a little bit more familiar with this package, per se, versus some of the Grand National guys that are coming up, like a Gary Cronenwet or a Bill Edwards.
Yeah, I thought Richard Springer was in here. And
oh, yep. No, you're correct.
I think they were in the prelim race, and I think Dakota Wilkins, he made it too.
No, you're absolutely
Dakota
right.
Wilkins representing the Truck Series.
All 3 series.
There were a few more truck guys. There were a few more truck guys running that prelim, but didn't make the final cut. Yeah, there's gonna be a little bit more familiarity, but I think almost the familiarity might be about the same because the new package came in pretty soon after that. The guys that have been here week in, week out from the Grand National and Truck Series have been racing and competing, especially a guy like Why is he slipping from my brain? Actually, he's not even in the series. He's not even in this race. I keep talking about Ryan Hesgaard. He's not even in the race.
No,
Must not have made it out of the. But Bill Edwards made it, his teammate. And so that's kind of interesting, the shakeup, because there was some big wrecks actually towards the end of that race for the prelims. Yep. So some guys that you would think would be in here are not. But we're seeing a few of Cup regulars who kind of backed away from the series when the package changed that we haven't seen in recent weeks. Alexander Russell back out there. He was on the pole initially. He's now been bumped all the way back to 9th. Hunter Johnson's back out there. We haven't seen him in a while.
Chad Presnell's also.
Chad Presnell's the big one. Chad Presnell kind of he quite pointedly expressed that he does not like this new package, and he was retiring from racing until this package goes away or something. But he's here tonight for the All-Star race, so maybe he'll show up for the rest of the season. Who knows? Maybe the bug will bite him again, and he'll get back in the car.
Well, I know you and I mentioned this during our Richmond broadcast. You know, it's only a matter of time before you realize, you know, these guys, they pay a lot of money to do this hobby here in iRacing, and they do it because they love auto racing. You may not like the changes initially, but at some point, the racer in you is going to be like, all right, let's do this. Let's stop being stubborn. Let's go. So it's good to see those guys back. For anyone watching who isn't quite following what's going on, just before this broadcast started, we had a 25-lap shootout of invitees here to the All-Star race. It was about a 10-car field. The top 3 finishers from that race are able to participate in this race, those being Bill Edwards, Dakota Wilkins, and Gary Cronenwet. So those 3 qualified in, I guess, on speed, I guess is the old way that they used to say it. So interesting to have those drivers in the mix. We will have probably actually one of our bigger fields that we've had in recent weeks for the All-Star event. Again, no points. There's nothing that happens in this race will leave this race with any implications, further down the road. It's not like the winner gets bonus points towards the playoffs or anything like that. But it's
except for
race.
Disciplinary actions of losing.
Someone
loses their mind during this race, and that's always something that we even see in real NASCAR. In the real NASCAR All-Star race, guys get pretty heated. And going forward for the rest of the season, people are NASCAR's gonna keep their eye on Clint Boyer and I keep slipping all my names.
Ryan Newman, I believe, was involved in that altercation.
They're gonna be keeping an eye on them going forward, and that's now back into regular actual racing. So there are things that will come out of this race that can affect. Oh, that's cool the way they're lining up on the track, actually. That's new.
Yeah, and also, this is also the brand new Charlotte Motor Speedway. The first time that we're going here is in a league. Not too different from the old one. The surface is a little bit more degraded. It's actually a little bit of a thinner surface because they have implemented the new safer barrier that goes all the way around the track. So a little bit of an adjustment. It's possible that we could see a lot of wall scrapes on entry and exit, especially going through this treacherous tri-oval.
That tri-oval was already tight.
Yeah. Well, Chris Lucky does get the pole, but as we said, Stage 1, ladies and gentlemen, the rules are it is a 30-lap event. Drivers will not or cannot pit during or after the stage, which is, again, 30 laps. The winner of the segment will start first in the final segment, and again, we have 3 stages, so not to confuse you, we'll just make sure you know about Stage 1. This is a 30-lap race. Caution or no caution, cars cannot pit. After Stage 1, the field, we will take a commercial break and the field will get completely inverted. Martin, however, it's our first race with this new package. It's our first race at this new track format, layout, or whatever you want to call it. And, of course, it's nighttime. And, there's no points here. All out. This should be an awesome race tonight, Martin. I can't wait, and we're just about ready to go green. Again, that's the 77 Toyota of Chris Lucky that did get the pole. But with all these new rules here tonight, there's going to be a lot of different strategies here. People may be sitting towards the middle of the pack so that when it gets inverted, you know, they're not starting dead last. But we will see here as the green flag is just about ready to drop. And the 2019 All-Star race is underway with Chris Lucky getting a good jump.
Yeah, he's continuing his good racing. He won last week. He wants to show, hey, I'm a big threat here.
And another big threat just behind him in second, trying to hold off the teammate of Chris Lucky. That is Richard Lucky in the 41 Toyota. Wade Hustad on the outside.
Yeah, those two guys, the 41 and 77, those brothers, they worked really well together last week to beat Anthony Burrows on that last green flag run. Oh, the 41 and 77 get really close to each other there.
And back here in the middle of the pack is, I mean, well, basically the entire pack from first, you know, all the way to last is an absolute cluster here. It's going to be like this for about 10 laps or so. There's going to be two grooves wide open, and then as soon as the tires start to wear a little bit, you're going to have to start kind of going into tire conservation mode, considering this set will have to last you 30 laps. So there's going to be some people that are being a lot more aggressive on the start, and then there's going to be some people that are maybe, you know, kind of taking it a little easy, trying to save those tires for maybe the final 10 or final 5 laps of this stage, which again is 30 laps.
Yeah, I've heard some things, you know, it's going to be like Talladega on a 1.5 mile track, but you're going to have a lot more tire burn off than Talladega, and so it becomes more of an issue. Dega, you can kind of, you know, tires aren't really an issue. Obviously, you want to get new ones every time you come in and be on the same level as everyone else, but you're probably not going to burn them off at a higher rate than going around you. It's just going around in circles. But here, depending on what you're doing,
you know,
where you're running.
You know, the 77, the 32, Wade Hustad choosing the high line, that could pay off. You know, not putting as much stress on that right front. A little bit, he's actually putting more on the right rear as he's, you know, using the middle and high lanes. But that outside line will, I anticipate, will get the advantage here shortly, because they'll be able to pinch that inside line down, which they're already going to have to be letting off the throttle at some point. But Wade Hustad right now, he actually pulls the Steve Turner into second as Wade Hustad ducks down low. We got a great battle for fifth with Thomas Harmon, Richard Lucky, Joseph Helt just behind him. And this is for the 7th spot, or the 5th spot rather, I apologize.
Yeah, Richard Lucky falling back into a 3-car battle now with Joseph Helt, and he's got Chad Presnell. Chad Presnell actually makes a contact with the rear end. Now he's going to slide up in front of the 64.
Yeah, now another thing with Chad Presnell and some of these other guys, Steve Turner, people that we haven't really seen in the last few weeks, you know, how much rust do they have to shake off, or have they been active in the iRacing community outside of DRL? You know, that remains to be seen. This could be all a learning situation for some of those drivers. Maybe they haven't really messed with the A car all that much, so that could be something that we keep an eye on. But right now,
yeah, I kind of wanted to.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I kind of want to stay with you know, that kind of idea that like they don't like the new package, but I wonder. I mean, the package has changed over the years. It's not the same as it was even, you know, 5-6 years ago, and so especially a guy who's been on iRacing for, you know, since the beginning. I mean, the car has evolved, and I'm sure there have been evolutions that drivers have not liked. I mean, I know James Pandoff, the league owner, he loves the, you know, those cars from the early 2000s, or what is it, the Gen 4?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's the superior car. That's the best car they've ever had. And, well, when they went away with that, how many people decided, well, I'm going to hang it up now? And then how many of those guys eventually came back because it's like, well, that's the car they're racing. If you want to race, that's what you're racing.
Right. No, you know, and to our point that we had a little earlier, it's you can only not race for so long if especially if you've dedicated the resources and the time to iRacing. But you know, we've got a little bit of a 3-car breakaway here. Thomas Harmon actually, you know, on the restart, he was kind of taking it easy, and all of a sudden he has tracked down our leader, Wade Hustad. And that is Thomas Harmon, who just started just inside the top 10, has been able to carve his way through the field. So that's something promising to note on that second stage. Once the field gets inverted, you can make your way through this pack. Thomas Harmon looks inside of Wade Hustad for the lead. 11 laps into this 30-lap stage.
Oh, okay. I'm just looking at the rules again. There is a reason to win the stage. If you win the stage, you then get to start in first in the final stage.
Yep, in the fifth, which is a 15-lap shootout. Again,
I was trying to think. It's like, well, if the field's gonna get inverted for stage 2, why would you want to even be in front anyway?
Right.
But if you can win the stage, now, I think it comes to a point when if you're running in third and you're a long way behind. You know, there's 5 laps to go. Maybe you start fading back to the back, so you can be near the front for stage 2.
I mean, yeah, like I said,
we'll see that as we get there.
That's one of the more interesting things of tonight. You know, there's going to be a whole totally different rules. Whoa! As Chris Lucky tries to avoid Wade Hustad, who had to let up the throttle, and that gives Thomas Harmon the lead. Anyway, well, I can't remember what I was saying now. That was a close call. Oh yeah, that's right. You know, with the different rules, unique rules, you know, some of these drivers have done the All-Star race format before, whether it's in this league or other leagues, and they might already have a strategy in play or in place. But some of these guys, you know, who knows? They might just be, you know, running what they have, and you know, whatever happens, happens. Certainly, that's what these top 3 drivers are doing. Is they have gapped the 4th place driver of Joseph Helt by about half a second here. Chad Presnall currently in 5th, and he started in 15th. So in 15 laps, he has gained 10 spots.
Yeah, to that strategy point, it kind of raises the question of, like, is it going to end up being, you know, if Thomas Harmon can pull away far enough where Wade Hustad or Chris Lucky don't even have a shot at getting past him before the stage ends, does it become a situation sort of like the qualifying issue where no one wants to be in second place? Everyone's trying to fall back, and by everyone falling back, the lead just grows higher, bigger and bigger.
Well, I certainly hope we don't see that, because there's just not enough room here for a driver to fall back on. We're seeing, you know, the bottom and middle groove being used actively, but you see there's not a lot of room now, especially with, you know, 3 feet of it being cut off by that safer barrier now.
Yeah, but it's kind of an interesting question. Like, at this point, you know, we're halfway through this first stage, and the field's sort of strung out. What are you thinking if you're towards the end of the tail end of this field? I mean, a guy like Dustin Musial, he's bringing up the rear. Is he trying to gain any positions now? Is he actively not trying to gain any positions, or is he trying and maybe his tires are burned off?
Well,
you know, how much racing are these guys not doing so they can start at the beginning in the front of the field?
Well, one thing I will note for stage 2, there will be a mandatory 4-tire pit stop under green. So if you're a Wade Hustad, a Chris Lucky, maybe you want to pit almost right away. You'll be at the back of the pack anyway. You just duck right into pit road, lap 2 or 3, get those fresh tires. You know, certainly there's pros and cons to any situation here, but right now we've got Thomas Harmon, who's starting to not really pull away, but maintain that spot over Wade Hustad. So, you know,
looks like Hustad's kind of closing it up a little bit. Chris Lucky was right there with Hustad, but he clipped that blue line going into the tri-oval, and that kind of upset him a little bit.
Well, one thing we saw just a few laps ago, as Thomas Harmon and Wade Hustad were battling for the lead initially, Chris Lucky was a few tenths of a second back, and it only took him about a lap or 2 with them being side by side for him to gain right back up on him. So, you know, that's going to be another thing. Side by side battles, you know, they obviously make you, you know, much slower, especially on these older tires. These guys have 20 laps on these tires, And we're seeing still these crazy side-by-side battles back here for 10th and so on with Hunter Johnson, John Theodore, Chris James. You know, they're they're racing as if it's almost the last lap here. Ooh, almost contact there.
Yeah, like these tracks are the ones where the new package is, I think, really shining. We saw it. I think Auto Club was really good. Texas in our league race wasn't that great, but here we see it again where it's again feels still spreading out, but we're still getting a few more often side-by-side racing. It doesn't just get spread out single file, a second between everyone really quickly. It takes a little bit longer. And I know some guys are still, well, it's too easy to drive the car. All right.
Well,
but you still have to race.
Right. Well, and we're seeing here there's still a skill set here that needs to happen as we see Thomas Harmon, Wade Hustad, drivers that have run up front all season long. They're starting to pull away. This top 5 is completely broken away from the pack behind it, and obviously that can only mean one thing. There's a difference in skill, there's a difference in speed. One thing about this new track package that I personally love, I love the short track aspect of it with the extra grip at the we've gone to ISM, we've gone to Dover, and it's been a lot of fun there. But here at Charlotte, this is incredible, and if this is any type of foreshadowing into next week's event, which is again at Charlotte, but that will be for points and back to our regular scoring system and rules. This is a good practice for some of these guys to see kind of what they'll have for next week, as Thomas Harmon, Wade Hustad still duking it out with 6 laps to go before we end stage 1. And as it stands right now, Dustin Musil would actually start as our leader for stage 2, with Mike Springer, Dakota Wilkins being our top 3, and Wade Hustad, Chris Lucky, they would be at the very back.
Yeah, and that's the strategy question. At this point in the run, do you start kind of just letting off a little bit, slowing down so you can kind of fade back to, maybe 16th, 17th, 18th?
Right. Well, one thing I will say,
is that just too contrary to your racing?
Yeah, right. No. I mean, right now, Wade Hustad's certainly not going to fall back, as he is getting ready to close in on Thomas Harmon, and Chris Lucky has joined the party all of a sudden. And the last few times around, Chad Presnall in 4th, he has been the fastest car around this track. So, and he actually made it. He had to deal with traffic, so you'd think his tires would be in worse shape, but currently Presnall about a 10th faster than most of these guys in the lead. So with 4 laps to go, Martin, this could get interesting.
Yeah, and we've talked about Presnall being a guy that backed out of racing because of the new package. It's not because he can't drive the new package, it's because he just doesn't like it. He doesn't like that it's easier to drive, and it kind of narrows the talent gap a little bit. And while it does narrow the talent gap, if you are a really talented driver, you're still going to have an advantage over the regular guy, the regular Joe going around. And now it's a little bit easier for that guy who's usually running 20th to stay upright and stay gripped on the track, but he's not going to suddenly start winning all the races and be right next to these top guys.
Hunter Johnson through the grass. Apologize for cutting you off there, but that will be the yellow, and I believe that's going to end the stage, as we'll see. We were just following Hunter Johnson.
Yep, into the wall, and he immediately disconnects. Yeah, so we're going to have to see. I'm going to listen here.
And got a little bit of that wall.
Yeah, it's going to be that's going to be the stage. It's not going to be a green-white checkered or anything. It's just going to be the stage. Green-white checker will be used for stage 3 to determine, obviously, the overall winner of the race. But for stage 1, it will end here, or will end in a couple laps.
All right. Well, that'll give Thomas Harmon the #1 starting spot for stage 3, assuming that he can keep his car clean through stage 2. Now, obviously, if I'm Thomas Harmon, stage 2, I'm not going to be anywhere near other cars, because we saw just there, just now, even an innocent little spin with Hunter Johnson. He almost collected Steve Turner. He was about 2 or 3 inches away from turning that car right out into the outside wall. So lucky break for Steve Turner, unfortunate break for Hunter Johnson. Becomes our first and only driver that is involved in an incident.
Yeah, speaking of Steve Turner, he started the race second. He's dropped all the way back to 8th. So to even be in that position where he could have been possibly taken out is because he's fallen back. And some other guys, especially big names like Harmon and Chad Presnell. Harmon going from 9th to 1st, and Presnell from 15th to 4th.
Well, and some of these other guys, again, we don't know if there was strategy about trying to stay in the middle of the pack. That way, when there's an inversion. Yeah. But either way, this has been, I'm sure, a learning process for most of these drivers. But we are going to take an extended commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. Thomas Harmon is your winner of Stage 1. Again, what that gives him is an opportunity to start in the first spot for Stage 3, if he survives Stage 2. We are going to flip the field. That will take a little bit, but we are going to take an extended commercial break. DRL TV will be back with you shortly for the start of Stage 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to stage number 2. We are about half a lap away from going green. The field has been inverted, so the stage 1 winner, Thomas Harmon, will be in 18th. Gary Cronenwet, who was in last place, is now bumped up into first. So stage 2, there is a mandatory 4-tire pit stop under green. Pitting may begin 5 laps after the stage begins. The winner of this segment will start second in the final segment. So again, winning means something here, but within 5 laps we can start doing those green flag pit stops, and we are about to go green for stage number 2, which is 45 laps.
There's a little bit of a bunch up. It looks like Bill Edwards didn't go exactly in line. And that was waiting for the restart zone. Gary Cronenwet couldn't go into the restart zone. It's a little bit different, I think, with that manual restart. Just raise control, yellow and green flag, and then once you get to that restart zone, you can go.
Yeah, crazy tight action here we've seen on both of these initial starts.
Yeah, look at Chris James just
Chris
going
James
to the
right
high
now.
side. Yeah, Chris James saw a little bit of a hole, almost got into the 44, and the 4 had to back out of that, or it would have been 3 wide, really tight.
And we've only had one caution, one incident so far that we have seen, and that is the 48 of Hunter Johnson, kind of a self-spin after he hit the exit of turn 4 and went into the infield, and he has disconnected. But right now, the top 4 or 5 cars have kind of went single file while they are side by side for 6th and 7th, and this is going to be something unique we see here. They're side by side with old tires. These tires are technically 36 laps old, so very, this is something that these drivers have not seen yet. And in the back, we still have Thomas Harmon, Joseph Held, Wade Hestad, 16th, 17th, and 18th. We'll see if those guys can make their way through the field. And we are just about, I believe we're
Well, it's
about
gonna get a little bit
2 laps away from being able to make green flag pit stops.
okay. Yeah, it's like it's gonna be a little bit more difficult keeping track of things because we have to remember. I think we restart at lap 34, right?
Yeah, lap 34
was our first lap, so it's a little bit confusing because we can't really just set. We don't not stage racing like. There's no way to set stage racing like real life on iRacing yet. Sure, that will be a feature at some point, and hopefully it's an optional feature.
Right. Yeah, we are looking for lap 79 is the magic number currently for the end, that will mark the end of the stage, which again is 45 laps, and in about, I think, 1 lap, if not 2, it will be, we may start seeing some drivers duck down pit road almost immediately. I would be surprised if we didn't.
Yeah, they can't go down this time around, but once they cross the line, we'll be into lap 39, and I believe then they can pit. Yep. And now they can pit. They've passed the start-finish line. They can now pit at any point.
Now if you're a driver that is in the back now, you have 45 laps to move your way back up, and this is when you start making your moves for that final stage. If you're back here, you got to start. As Presnell is the first person to come down pit road, and he will actually almost lose control of the car there.
Oh yeah.
As we will move back to our leaders, Chad Presnell, pitting under those, trying to go from 180 to 50 or 45 miles an hour on old tires. That's certainly going to be a scenario that we'll have to keep an eye on for some of these drivers. As we saw right there, Chad Presnell, one of the best that DRL has, barely made it onto pit road in one piece. As we see some other drivers heading down pit road, Joseph Held and John Mullins. But at the end of this stage, there's no field inversion. There's nothing of that nature. So wherever you finish in stage, at the end of this stage, again, that's lap 79 is the number we're looking for. That's where you will start stage 3, which is a 15-lap shootout. But But because of these old tires, Martin, obviously we see everyone is getting very spread out here, more so than we saw on that on our initial start of the race. And Chad Presnall just now leaving pit road. So he must have sustained some damage and got a penalty or something, as he'll enter the race 2 laps down, as he was one of the fastest cars, if not the fastest car, during that first stage. So that certainly heartbreaking for Chad, and he'll need a lot of things to go his way in order to get back into contention. So far we have about 6 drivers that have taken tires so far in this sequence of green flag pit stops. And that still leaves 12 drivers on the track that are on those older tires. Some of them may be waiting for a caution. Others might be waiting maybe for the end of the stage. I'm not exactly sure of the fuel window here, Martin.
Yeah, I think it's around, I would say it's around 40 to 50 would probably be the fuel window.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, we should see everybody in here within the next 7 or 8 laps. And Wade Hustad.
He got a little bit of excitement there. Whoa. Went into replay. Hustad going down pit road. He slowed up a lot right in front of Alexander Russell and Thomas Harmon. Really close. Harmon came over the mic. A little bit excited about that situation. Gotta give a heads up or something. Do that.
So, of the 18 drivers we have on the track, currently 9 of them have yet to pit, so that is half the field that has decided to pit under green flag conditions. Half the field has stayed out. And, you know, interestingly enough, if we have any type of caution, a lot of those drivers are going to be caught a lap down. You know, they'd obviously take the wave around, of course, but, you know, anytime we have green flag pit stops, you know, there's that middle part of that cycle that, you know, is kind of, you know, a lot of these drivers might have a little bit of anxiety.
Well, and they all have to pit under green at some point. They can't pit under yellow anyway. So
correct. No, that's a good point.
Again, there's a difference of the rules. Yeah, I was thinking, like, yeah, that's why would you ever pit? You would just stay out. Again, that's what makes the rule special, is that it's a mandatory green flag stop. As you know, just having a mandatory pit stop. It's like, well, obviously, everyone's just gonna wait for that yellow flag. Then that's gonna probably happen in a 45 lap run, I think, if they can do it. Obviously, fuel would be an issue.
Right. Well, we are about 15 laps into this run. Yeah, 15 laps into the 45 lap segment. And, you know, we're still seeing some really close racing. Otherwise, you know, because of these old tires and, you know, because of the green flag pit stops, you know, right now, really the only battle is what we're looking at right now, and that is for just outside the top 5 with Dustin Musil in 6th. Otherwise, not a whole lot going on here for the All-Star race. So, as we see Dustin Musil come down pit road.
Yeah, how is there this 4-second gap for Gary Cronin? What is it? Just that everyone behind him on the restart? I mean, I guess, yeah, Mike Springer, he came down pit road.
Well, also Gary Cronin went. He was in the back of that pack for most of that first stage. So, and we know that he's fast from the B. You know, we know that he's fast from the B series. So he's just up here biding his time. But at some point, you have to pit. That way, if a caution does come out, let's say right now, you know, there's still 5 or 6 drivers that still would have to make a green flag pit stop, and you know that would just about all but end their chances to get that, you know, that stage win. You know, that guarantees you a top spot in the 3rd stage, and you know it could put him a lap down, almost out of contention. So,
yeah, he's got to worry about. He's got to think about the time he's losing to guys like John Theodore and Jim Westerfield and Wade Hustad, because he's gaining time on Chris James, Richard Lucky, Bill Edwards, Steve Turner, and Chris Lucky, who are still out there on their old tires. And I think Richard Lucky is just announced he's going to be coming down pit road this time around. And Gary Cronenwet as well, calling out that the 01 is pitting, but he is the
he is the 10.
01 in the Grand National Series.
As we watch
Habit's
Gary,
hard to break.
Right, we watch Gary make his approach onto pit road, 45 miles an hour. And that will give Chris James the lead.
Chris James with Bill Edwards in tow.
So 3 drivers pit. That is Gary Cronenwet, Richard Lucky, and Steve Turner. And Chris Lucky, Bill Edwards, and Chris James are the final 3 cars that have yet to make their mandatory green flag 4-tire pit stop.
Yeah, and you think at this point, Chris Lucky should probably pit. He's already been passed by Jim Westerfield and John Theodore to get their laps back from him. Jim Westerfield is now eyeing up the 82 to get his lap back, making a little bit of a Bill Edwards sandwich, him and John Theodore. Theodore's going to make an easy pass on the inside. And so now those first 2 cars a lap down have gotten their laps back. So you've got to start thinking Chris James, Bill Edwards, Chris Lucky, time to come down and change those tires.
Right.
Unless you're gambling. Again, you're not really gambling on a yellow flag because you can't pit. You still need to take that mandatory 4-tire stop on a green flag.
Yeah, absolutely not. Now, one time, a time that a lot of these drivers are interested in hearing is the amount of time you're on pit lane during a green flag pit stop. Our fastest right now is for 37.1 seconds, Steve Turner. He was on pit road for the least amount of time, but because he was out, because he was on those green flag tires for so long, he's really not going to be able to take advantage of the fact that he was the fastest car so far to get down pit road, make his pit stop, and leave. He's the fastest by about half a second. Gary Cronenwet he was on pit road for about 38.6 seconds. So, right there, that's a second and a half of time, and that's what makes these mandatory.
You have a clock for the whole pit road time?
Yeah, as soon as they enter the speeding, the initial speed zone. So it's very, very interesting that right there, that was a second and a half that Gary Cronenwet lost to another driver, and Steve Turner, all he did was execute just a little bit better, and a second and a half in these cars with this package, that's a lot of time.
Well, that's a very cool stat that you can bring up to us now, because usually the standard stat is how long were they in their box, how long did the stop itself take. But if you go, you come down pit road and you're only going 35 and you're losing all that time going down pit lane, or you take more time to get into your box,
right?
Yeah, it's gonna be different. That overall being down pit road is probably a much better gauge of what's going on.
So one driver has yet to make his pit stop. That is Chris Lucky.
And he's getting passed by everyone really easily. All these lap cars getting their lap back.
And once he pits, Jim Westerfield is going to be our leader by about half a second over Mike Springer. Wade Hustad is about half a second behind him in 4th, and what will be 3rd once Chris Lucky makes that pit stop. So Jim Westerfield, a name that we don't normally call out too often here, is he's in a position to start our final 15-lap sprint in 2nd place.
Yeah, those top 2 guys, once Chris Lucky gets past here, Jim Westerfield and Mike Springer, we mention Mike Springer a little bit more often, and he tends to be a little bit higher in the standings. Last season was mostly in the top 5, but has yet to win a race in the Cup Series. Same with Jim Westerfield. But both are consistent, good drivers. They're right there. Westerfield, he's a guy that's going to get in the playoffs if he shows up every week, because he just finishes. And
right.
You look at the standings, I don't have the standings pulled up right in front of me, but I feel like he is a top 10 guy right now.
Yeah, Jim Westerfield currently sits
He's always
8th.
just right there.
Just by virtue of being an active participant in the Dynasty Racing League. Now,
That's part of it, but even last season, He was a guy, yeah, it's like a little bit less because I think he came in a little bit later. But he was a guy that was a top 20 guy all season. And this season he has been top 10 solid. And it's a little bit easier to do this season with the number of drivers, but he hasn't been finishing in the pits every race either.
Exactly. Now we mentioned Wade Hustad, who was in third. Now that Chris Lucky has pitted, John Theodore is actually in fourth. Dakota Wilkins, who is the Daytona winner in the DRL Truck Series, so he's the Daytona 250 champion. He currently sits fifth. Gary Cronenwet, who stayed out much longer than other drivers, and he had a 4-second lead over second place. He actually is back in sixth, so he doesn't lose too much time. Richard Lucky in seventh. Taylor Butcher Benjamin, who we have yet to talk about, in eighth. Steve Turner in ninth. And Thomas Harmon, winner of stage number 1, is in 10th place. But Mike Springer, since he's passed Jim Westerfield for the lead, he's kind of gapped him by just a couple tenths here. Wade Hustad has been kind of just sitting behind both of these drivers. He obviously has plenty of laps to make up time here, but currently he's just riding around. Jim Westerfield does have the oldest tires of anyone on the track. He, Chad Presnall, Joseph Helt all pitted just about at the same time, as did John Theodore. So we'll see what Gary Cronenwet, who has 10 lap fresher tires than a Wade Hustad or Mike Springer. We'll see what kind of ground he can make up. Currently right now, that last time by, he was about half a second faster than Mike Springer.
And Presnell had that trouble on pit road. I am assuming that's why he was a lap down. I did hear race control say that he had come in a lap too early, but I think that was fixed. I think he came down the proper time. Lap 39 was after 5 laps. And I don't think he had to serve any penalty. I think that was just he was in his box for, I think you mentioned it, he was in there for a little bit longer than usual.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now we're taking a replay, looking at Wade Hustad taking away second place from Jim Westerfield. Westerfield just kind of rides high and lets him have it. Again, Westerfield having the oldest tires of anyone really on the track right now, so he's just trying to nurse it till the end. As we go back to our live feed, Wade Hustad about almost 0.7 of a second behind Mike Springer. Gary Cronenwet about 0.7 of a second behind Jim Westerfield. Still, that last time by though, Gary Cronenwet, his lap times were almost identical with the leaders. So the advantage that he had with those fresh tires certainly starting to fade now, as we see John Theodore feel the effects of pitting first. Some of the guys with fresher tires are starting to pass him as he drops to 6th, potentially 8th here, as Dakota Wilkins is just behind. And Steve Turner I think he has a little bit of right side damage. It doesn't seem to be affecting him. As the 26, the purple 26 Chevy that we're currently looking at.
Well, and here's the idea that the last stage, you could afford to give up some spots because you're going to invert. This time you need to stay up as close to the front, because all that changes after this stage is that the winners of stage 1 and 2 go to the front row. Everyone else stays where they are. After yellow flag pit stops, you can pit. You can choose not to pit. Now, maybe that's what Chris Lucky was thinking. He's going to stay out there later in this early run, in this stage. He'll be able to stay out and maybe finish the race on the tires he just took. But
I certainly wouldn't suggest that if I were him, as we have 10 laps to go of this second stage before we head to stage 3. Currently, Mike Springer 0.6 of a second over Wade Hustad. Gary Cronenwet starting to reel both of those guys in just a little bit. As we're riding on board with him right now, looking back at Jim Westerfield, he's already gapped by 0.6 of a second in about 2 laps that since he passed him. So the top 5 kind of strung out here, Martin. You know, besides the Hunter Johnson incident where he kind of self-spun after hitting the wall, certainly we see some of these cars have a little bit of damage from contact with either other cars or scraping the wall, but no significant damage by anyone yet. So, you know, Chad Presnall being the first car a lap down currently, I mean, he could seriously get his lap back and, you know, with any luck, maybe charge his way through the field. We have 18 cars of 19 that started this race still in contention, technically, you know, mathematically, for winning this all-star event. So that's, you know, that just really proves, you know, the parity that we have in the Dynasty Racing League.
Well, I'm guessing strategy-wise, I'm trying to figure out like what the point of staying out longer was in this run. And looking at Chris Lucky, I'm questioning it. It's like, why would you stay out that long? Because he hasn't moved anywhere. But if you watch Chris James is moving through the field. He was the guy that stayed out second longest. He came in right before, a few laps before Chris Lucky.
Yep.
He's actually gained his path back. He's moving because other guys' tires who came in right away are dropping off. So I think that's what the strategy is. You stay out longer, and then once you get your tires, you're going to be able to come back and really easily take back a lot of those positions.
Well, we have 6 laps to go, and Gary Cronenwet is now passing Wade Hustad, or attempting to pass Wade Hustad for second place. Again, he has about 8 lap fresher tires than Wade. Wade obviously isn't going to give it to him. Certainly going to make him use up his stuff trying to pass him. But this is going to be something that Mike Springer wants to see. He wants to see those two battle side by side. But
yeah, we think about it. Advantage forever is, you know, winning a stage is a huge advantage because you get automatic first and second place to start the next stage, regardless of what you do on pit road. So you can pit and you're guaranteed that first and second position.
Well, we have about 4 laps left of this stage, so if he's going to make his move, he's got to do it now. Wade Hustad, in the meantime, with Gary right behind him, they might be using the draft to maybe catch Mike Springer, as that gap has been halved. Now it's down to 0.3 of a second. So Gary Cronenwet, again, I think right now it looks like he played the strategy. You know, he and Wade Hustad certainly have played the strategy very, very well. Those drivers started almost exact opposite in this second stage. Gary Cronenwet started first. Wade Hustad restarted in 18th. So here they are sitting in second and third, trying to take the win away from Mike Springer. And again, winning this stage means that you get to start our final stage, stage 3, in second place, right next to Thomas Harmon, our stage 1 winner.
Yeah, and you don't have to do any strategy with the pit stop. I'm sure there'll be a few guys that are going to do something strategic. They're going to stay out on the older tires and see what they can do. But if you win the stage, you get to go in, get your 4 fresh tires and fuel, and you're guaranteed that spot. Everyone else are still jockeying for position on pit road or by staying out. And Wade Hustad is eyeing up the outside line. Now he's going to go low. Oh, Springer almost blocked him, put him into that red area.
Springer, if he fights, both of these guys have those older tires. Gary Cronenwet might be able to take advantage. There's just 1 lap to go here. It's lap 78 of 150. We're looking for lap 79 here. Wade Hustad.
Cronenwet just made a little bit of contact with the wall.
Now, all-star race aside, this is gonna kind of be a little bit of a test session for next week's race, which is here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and we're seeing Wade Hustad, our defending Cup Series champion. He has a lot of speed here tonight, so I mean that probably means next week he's going to be a favorite to win that race as well and get his third official race of the season. As Gary dives down low over Wade, can he make it stick coming out of 3 and 4?
No. Wow, Springer goes through the grass.
Springer tried to take the short way around, as Wade Hustad will win our second stage.
Wow, Wow, someone crashed, actually. They were going to probably throw... I was going to say they'd have to probably throw the yellow flag manually, but... Let's see, who crashed? Yeah, Musel. Musel actually wrecks. Coming into the tri-oval there, he hits the exit of turn 4. Goes across into the little red Toyota area there. And he almost collects Bill Edwards. Bill Edwards is able to get by.
Well, luckily for Musel, we have, between the stages you can pit.
Yep.
And if there are yellows, only the green flags, the green flag laps will count. Now, anyone that is familiar with, the sport of NASCAR, you'll recognize most of these rules. So, anyone who's watched NASCAR and NASCAR All-Star Race probably within the last decade knows knows all about the rules, the inversion, green laps, only counting towards the 15-lap total. So, no really big surprises.
Yeah, who won the first stage? Was that Harmon?
Thomas Harmon won the first stage. Wade Hustad won the second. So no matter what, those two will be starting first and second for our final stage. So DRL TV's...
So our race control is going to have to move Harmon to the front of the field at some point, probably after they go down pit road and everything, after you go through all these stops. They will... I would think you just... no, you wouldn't want to do a wave round. Wave round would put everyone a lap down.
Right. Well...
I think you just let them pass everyone, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how they'll go about it. Again, we don't have as many functions as race control as you would like, and so you have to kind of jerry-rig things.
Right. Well, as these drivers are pitting, once we see the race off pit road, DRL TV will take a commercial break as we set up stage 3, which will be a 15-lap shootout with the front row consisting of Thomas Harmon and Wade Hustad, but Gary Cronenwet, Steve Turner actually wins the race off.
Turner, so nice burnout.
So Turner will restart 3rd, Cronenwet will start 4th.
Yeah, Springer 5th, Jim Westerfield 6th, and then Wade Hustad will jump back into the front into 2nd place. John Theodore will restart 7th. All
right, well, DRL TV will take a quick commercial break. When we return, the final stage, a 15-lap shootout to determine the winner of the 2019 DRL Cup Series All-Star Race.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dynasty Racing League All-Star event here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, 1 lap till green. Just a reminder, the next week's race will be, back to our regular points and scoring and rules. We'll be here at Charlotte for the Charlotte 300 with the A Series. Our next broadcast will be the All-Star Race, and that is for the B Series, our Grand National Series, tomorrow night at Lucas Oil. A very, very different track from the one that we're here at tonight. And if you're a viewer because either you like racing, you like the DRL TV broadcast, or because you like a certain driver that participates in the Dynasty Racing League, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. That way you can be notified anytime we go live. But we are about ready to go racing here. 15 laps only of green flag racing only. So if there is a yellow, those laps will not count. So we have 15 green flag laps. Green white checkers are in our back pocket if needed. Thomas Harmon, Wade Hustad lead the field back to green. Pace car getting ready to duck off, and again, as we mentioned,
so I think lap 100.
That'll be 85 plus 15.
Yep.
Yeah, so lap 100. Assuming this goes green, which this may not, as we see Hustad and Thomas Harmon.
True. Yeah, Hustad waited until Hustad and Harmon. I think Hustad went first too, but they waited until just to the end of that restart zone. They did not. They were not in a hurry to go.
Well, with 15 laps here, not a whole lot of time to save tires. It's just go, go, go. We'll see who has, the short run speed to pull it off, as Thomas Harmon will lead this first lap. Wade Hustad, Gary Cronenwet on the outside. Steve Turner, Mike Springer on the inside. John Theodore and Jim Westerfield are kind of creeping into the picture in 6th and 7th.
Just not a lot of room right now, and it very much looks like we're watching Daytona or Talladega race. They're all on top of each other.
Oh, Rock, we have Dakota Wilkins around. So lap 86. So that was what, three laps green? As we will get a restart.
They start 85, 86. Yeah, so 2 laps because we're just starting 87 on the yellow.
We will look and see what happens.
We're going to have 13 laps to go green.
Looks like John Mullins, the 64 Chevy, gets into Dakota Wilkins, the 53, and just gets him a little loose in the middle of the corner. That takes out the 77 of Chris Lucky and Taylor Butcher Benjamin.
Yeah, there was some bumping and jockeying with the 64 a little bit earlier, where the 82 and the 64, I think, were right on top of each other. And yeah, he just got into the 53. It takes out the 8, the 77. That's a kind of a low note to go out on for Chris Lucky. He started the race in first, and he's not going to really have a chance to win this all-star race.
Well, and one thing to note that there are no restrictions. Anyone can pit now, so we might see some people, maybe outside the top 10 or maybe, outside the top 7, come down pit road, get those 4 fresh tires. It looks like everyone pitted, but I think everyone back to the top 5, I believe. Top 6. Actually, even more than that. So, yeah, Chris James is the last car that stays out in 9th. Chris Lucky and some of those other guys that were involved in that last wreck, Chad Presnall, Bill Edwards, they will come in and get their fresh tires.
Yeah, I think the only ones who are coming in without being involved is Alexander Russell, probably. I think Bill Edwards might have missed that as well. I think Bill Edwards, Chad Presnall, and Russell, those guys came down voluntarily. I think Mullins, Lucky, and Butcher Benjamin, I mean, they could have chosen to stay out, but I think it's always a good idea to at least get some fresh tires after being involved in a wreck.
Well, we kind of go through the field here, and we talk about the good runs that people have. Steve Turner, John Theodore, Gary's having a great run tonight. He's been fast all night. Jim Westerfield. But unfortunately, tonight, Martin, it really doesn't matter, because the only position that matters is the first one, and right now that's currently Thomas Harmon. And we've seen if you can get a good enough jump on those restarts and maintain that preferred line, block as much as you need to. It's very, very hard to pass, especially once you start going side by side. All that does is allow people that are behind you to make an attempt at passing you. So I mean, right now, we talk about Talladega, Daytona. Since the racing is similar, we talk about where do you want to be with 3 laps to go with on the final lap. And right now, I from what I've seen, I want to be the leader. So technically, that was 1 lap under green completed, so we will have 14 laps to go once we get this restart. And that is coming straight from the mouth of our race control person.
All right, well that's what I was hoping for. It's like that we have a clear, race control just lets us know what is the final lap, what is the white flag lap, or what is the number that is the checker flag. That's all we got to know. I mean, even if he does the math wrong and we actually did 2 laps or 3 laps, we all need to know exactly what he's calling as the final lap. And if he says it's 14, that would make it. What is that probably going to be? We're probably going to get restarted here on lap 91 will be the green flag. So that'd be 105 would be the checkered flag, I think, right? Or would that be white flag?
I think that'd be checkered flag. White flag would be 104. I'm not sure. We'll get all that sorted out. Again, we only do 1 all-star race a year, so us as broadcasters aren't as well versed as we should be.
Well, you got to think like which lap number is the checkered, because that's when, really it's what lap are you on the white flag, and then because once you finish that lap, then it's the checkered. So it's sometimes a little confusing because.
Well, we do have 1 to go, so we will restart with 91. We'll restart on lap 91. So add 14 to that, and that is what we're looking for. So far, again, if there's another yellow, those laps won't count either. So that number will change. And we saw
when they flip over to 105, it would be that. Yeah, there's no yellow.
We saw the margin of error, Martin, very, very thin. The 64 to 53, barely making any contact, and that absolutely sent the 53 into an uncontrollable slide. So I mean, this could not be the last. This could be the last restart, but it's likely that we haven't seen our last restart, as we still have 16 cars jockeying for an opportunity to win the 2019 DRL All-Star Race. So 14 laps to go. Thomas Harmon, Steve Turner in the front row, Mike Springer, Wade Hustad, John Theodore, and Gary Cronenwet. Chad Presnall in 10th is the first driver with those fresh tires. And we'll see what he can do. It's possible that, Chad Presnall, we saw that he had the speed earlier. If he didn't get too much damage from that pit road incident, he could come up here and make a name for himself and try to win this thing in his first race back in quite some time. Green flag is out. Thomas Harmon, Steve Turner, much better start that time, as they have the drivers just behind him pushing him along the way. The inside line does get that little bit of an advantage.
Those 2 guys behind him got right on that bumper. Whoa! Gary Cronenwet's going to move down. He's going to force his way in front of Jim Westfield. Westfield had to ease off just a little bit, otherwise the 10 would have been in the wall. And wow, he just gave a huge bump to the 27.
And that gives Theodore, that puts him side by side with 3rd place. That's the 27 and the 26th. And Mike Springer looking inside. And we've seen Mike Springer, he's not afraid to use the often unraced areas of this racetrack. We've already seen him go through the infield to try to cut and get a position on Gary Cronenwet, as Mike Springer looks to the inside of Thomas Harmon, Steve Turner, John Theodore, I guess you'd call him row 2, Gary Cronenwet, Wade Hustad, row 3. I believe we have 12 laps to go.
There's nothing spreading out here. It's just getting tighter and tighter.
Right now, Mike Springer doesn't really have that drafting help behind him, and you'll see the advantage that Thomas Harmon gets with having Steve Turner tucked just behind him. Now, just like Daytona Talladega, these drivers that are pushing aggressively in these final laps have to pay attention to their temperatures. It's, you know, it's not... Oh, a wreck
we're
in the
gonna have
back.
a yellow flag. So we got 3 laps down there.
That is Chris James, the 82, Dysfunctional Patriot Racing Ford. We'll see what... Oh, actually, no. Yeah, that is a Chevy. I apologize. Looks like he kind of
Chevy tonight.
Looks like he kind of cuts up. We'll try to get a closer look here before, you know, we make any judgment calls here.
Yeah, it kind of looks like he slides up a little bit and kind of closes the door on the 44.
It looks like he chops the nose of that's the 44 of Alex Russell. Russell turns him, and unfortunately, Dakota Wilkins.
Gonna catch Dakota Wilkins again.
Adding insult to injury for his All-Star event. So, looking at the 82, that's really a little bit too much damage to continue. You know, so realistically, you know, we've got about 11 cars or so that have, you know, that still have a shot at this thing.
And we're double checking here, but I think that means we'll still have to complete 11 more laps. Wow, Steve Turner and Mike Springer dove down and then came back right up.
And it looks like John Theodore and Gary Cronenwet, or is that Bill Edwards? They stay out, so the top 4 drivers will be on older tires. Everyone else has come down. Now, whether they get 2 or 4 tires, you know, that will be, you know, we know how important track position is. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some 2-tire stops here.
Yep, I'll give Steve Turner props there. He actually ducked back out before crossing that orange commitment area. I know a lot of guys, I see a lot of guys at a lot of tracks, they'll go right down, they'll cross that commitment line, and they'll come back up, and they don't get penalized for it because iRacing doesn't penalize for it yet. But that really frustrates me when I see guys go past that commitment area and then they just come diving right back up the track. It's like, well, that's what that line's for.
Right.
And Turner darted back out right before it. Made sure he didn't get any tires on it like in real life. And nice move by him.
Richard Lucky in the 41, Chad Presnell in the 55. They elect to take 2 tires, so they will restart 5th and 6th. Thomas Harmon takes 4. Alex Russell will have 2 tires, and Wade Hustad will also have 4. So a mixed bag, about half and half as far as 4 and 2 tire stops, which I'll confirm. I'll confirm how many laps we have left to go, but if you're Thomas Harmon,
11, I think.
Yeah, if you're Thomas Harmon, all of a sudden things aren't looking as great. But those top 4 drivers, I mean, they're going to be, you know, for lack of better words, certainly don't mean any disrespect to them, but they're going to be kind of a rolling roadblock here with those older tires, significantly older tires, and you know that we're about to see, you know, what difference, you know, 10 laps of green flag racing makes here.
But yeah, we have 11 laps. That's what Jeremy Hebel up in Race Control is saying. 11 laps to go. We did complete 3 that run. We completed the first run before that caution. So, God, I just forgot what I was gonna mention. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a mix. I mean, you said it was gonna be a mixed bag. We got a mixed bag of 2 tire and 4 tires and no tires. These top 4 guys, I'm looking at Gary Cronenwet because that last run, he was a little shaky going around the track a few times. Had to ease up and kind of back up the field, lost a few positions. He's going to be restarting in 4th and on older tires now, so that's the car I'm watching. I'm watching the 10 to see what happens with him.
Well, that last run, I was trying to do my best to pay attention to Chad Presnell because I mentioned he was the first car with 4 tires. But he, you know, being faster here is all good. But it just we saw with them being 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. Yeah, there's no third groove here. And you know, unless you really start being incredibly aggressive, which certainly, you know, it's just about time to do that. But unless you're putting your nose in places where people, you know, aren't expecting them to be just yet, you know, at this point in time, you know, that's really the only way that you're going to be able to pass somebody, you know, in the first 3 or 4 laps of these stints that we're having. And even these guys on older tires.
Is because right in front of Chad Presnell is Gary Cronenweth, and Cronenweth was not comfortable that last those 3 laps. He was kind of shaky, and now he's in front of a guy that could be fast on 2 tires.
Those 2 tires. Well, and he already had 4 tires on the last stop, so even the 2 tires
still got pretty fresh.
Yeah, the 2 tires that he has that are old are still not, you know, in, you know, too bad a shape here. Now half a lap to go until we get the green flag, and we have, you know, we will have 11 laps, so it'll be lap 99. So we're looking at, you know, lap 110, and, you know, assuming this goes green to the end, which I'm just not sure if we're going to get it here. Again, this is all-star racing, no points, you know, no, unless you intentionally wreck somebody, there's no serious implications here. It's just coming out here to see who can win this race. Right now, Steve Turner, Mike Springer on the front row. And the green flag is out, and Turner gets a great start.
Yeah, look at Chad Presnell just trying to go, but nowhere for him to move because right in front of him, Cronenweth a little bit slower to start than him. Well, the 41 and the 55 on a little bit fresher tires. Half their tires are a little bit fresher. And they also have those pretty good tires from an earlier stop.
Now, the drivers that have these older tires, the top 4, you know, they have the preferred line on the outside. They're going to be able to pinch those drivers on the inside. Steve Turner and Bill Edwards, they also have those old tires. So if I'm Richard Lucky, if I'm Chad Presnell, I'm going to try to get on that outside line and see about maybe... Oh, Bill Edwards. Whew, that was a close one. He kind of rolled through the center there, almost got into the side of Gary Cronenweth, as they are 3 wide.
Well, there goes Gary, makes contact. You see the tire smoke. And in real life, that could lead to some cut tires right there, but...
And the 41
doesn't have that.
Richard Lucky doing his best to cut through this traffic, and just behind him, Thomas Harmon has made his way, and he has 4 fresh tires, Thomas Harmon does.
Yeah, Gary Cronenweth gets bounced out. I think he finally bowed out there because he was really shaky. He just wasn't able to hang on to the car, and he had some really fast cars bumping into him.
Oh, yep. We have a spin.
So that's going to be... How many laps did they complete there? 2?
They were 3 wide. The 64 bounces off the 27 of John Theodore and gets into the 10 of Gary Cronenweth. Also involved Jim Westerfield, who gets absolutely annihilated here. Let's right on board with Jim Westerfield. We see they're 3 wide here. As we mentioned on the new Charlotte configuration, not a lot of room. 64 gets into the 10, and Westerfield gets clipped and absolutely smashes that outside wall. My goodness.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's Gary Cronenweth was really pinching, and you saw that even when he was up in the top 4 there, he was pinching that low line and getting really painfully close to the guy on the low line. And yeah, that's what's going to happen when there's not enough room for that. I think we completed 2 laps there.
Yeah, it looks like, I mean, they probably could have made it through just fine, but we're seeing that, you know, I see there the 64 gets a tad bit loose. Again, he is being squeezed between the 27 and the 10.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of room for a mistake. You make a slight mistake and boom, you're right into that car on either side of you. So it wasn't, obviously it wasn't bad driving. It wasn't intentional by any means. It was just, and it wasn't forcing the issue. It's just there wasn't a lot of room.
No, there's just no room to be had. Now
and you can't make any mistake, and that's, you know, just a slight twitch of the wheel or whatever, and that's what it was.
So the top 7 drivers stay out.
Yeah, so the tire situation gets a little bit more fuzzy. Steve Turner, Mike Springer on the older tires. Richard Lucky and Chad Presnall, we know, had those 2 tires. I think Harmon also took tires last
Yeah,
stop, right?
Harmon took 4 tires. Richard Lucky and Chad Presnall took 2.
2.
But Steve Turner and Mike Springer on those OG tires that they started the third stint or the third stage on, they're still running strong here, first and second. But
Now I think we have what, 8 laps to go?
8 laps to go, absolutely. Now, one thing to mention here is Steve Turner, Mike Springer, the top 4 drivers on that last restart had those older tires. But Steve Turner and Mike Springer, they don't have the the benefit of having drivers in the similar situation behind them. They're going to have drivers with fresh tires basically pushing them off this restart and just waiting to attack. Again, 8 laps to go. That's not a lot of time, and these drivers, we're starting to see that they understand that it is go time.
Yeah, and this is the way this race is going here to end is not the way you want to see a race end on a usual day, but this is a different animal completely because it must be completed under green. They must be green flag laps.
Mm-hmm.
And so guys are pushing, guys are gambling. They have nothing to lose, really. There is nothing to lose because if you wipe out, it doesn't count against you. If you win, you get the bragging rights. There's nothing to lose or to really gain besides the bragging rights.
Right, and again,
in a normal race, normal late race situation, obviously guys are going to be pushing and trying to get the win, but they also know that okay, it's getting a little hairy. I'm just going to back out, get out of this 3 wide, and finish 4th.
Well, and another thing that to your point there, not only is that going on, but some of these drivers are taking notes for next week's race for the Charlotte 300. Mm-hmm. What does 2 tires do? What does 4 tires do? How many laps can you go before you basically have to take 4 tires? Because we've seen how spread out this field can get after about 10 to 15 green flag laps. So we'll see. The practice of getting on pit road under green flag conditions is going to be beneficial for next week, and very, very excited to see that race next week because that will be, a little bit more back to the usual rules. But just 3/4 of a lap to go until we get green flag racing. That will be lap 106. That is posted up there in the top left, and 8 laps of green flag racing remains here in the 2009 Dynasty Racing League All-Star event. Martin, who do you got right now?
Well, I mean, Harmon's got those, probably got the freshest tires of this group. So I'd probably say Harmon can get into the right position, get on that outside line. Probably Harmon or Hustad.
Yeah, the first car with 4 fresh tires is going to be Bill Edwards in 8th. Everyone in front of him has took tires to some degree all the way up to 3rd, and 1st and 2nd, they have not taken tires yet this entire stage, so we'll see if there's anything left for those, as this last restart is probably promises to be a very, very exciting one.
The difference isn't huge. I mean, Edwards got 4 fresh, Harmon got 4 fresh 2 laps earlier, so there's a difference, but it's not huge. So I think Harmon, I'm looking at Harmon and Hustad, those guys. Harmon's going to dive down the inside
Harmon
line.
takes it low. Richard Lucky, Chad Presnall on the 2 fresh tires. Wade Hustad on 4 fresh tires, as is his teammate Thomas Harmon, and Thomas makes it 3 wide.
Yeah, you can see everything's spreading out a lot quicker too this time around. And yeah, see, there goes Harmon. I think that's now he's going to get kind of roadblocked here by Steve Turner, and that's going to give Hustad and Presnall. Now, Hustad and Presnall are old teammates.
And 3 wide, Thomas Harmon for the lead. Yeah. My goodness, what a move. He does clear the 12 Springer.
Yeah, that's different. And,
wreck up
a
front.
little net code, but they were close, and the 41, 26 are going to get collected. I think they made a little bit of contact with the 12 of Mike Springer, so that was how many laps? That's probably another. I think they're going to give them 2 laps completed there.
Riding on board with the 41, we see Spring. Yeah, that is absolutely net code. Very, very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, that is the very unfortunate part of auto racing via internet. As we see the 12 moves up, and I don't know if it's his bumper or the 41 that turns the 26.
Yeah, I think with the.
I think it's actually the 12.
That they were. Yeah. I figured that the 12 and the 41 were going to be the ones that were going to really go, and then the 26 suddenly spins out.
We'll take one more look at that.
Right.
And
I think what happened, it's just simulating that Mike Springer was in a slightly higher up the track than it's showing. Because you see the 41 also go flying off. So the 41 made contact with the 12, definitely.
Now let's ride on board with Wade Hustad, who's technically a part of this wreck, but I'm not sure how much damage he got as you ride on board with him. And this is what he saw.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. Let's see. I'm looking on the outside.
Ooh, he hit him pretty hard. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he made contact with 41, and just kind of. Yeah, you can see like a little bit of a hood crinkle. Well, I think that's going to give us 6 laps to go. I think they'll credit that lap as being completed completely under green. Close enough.
Well, as we get this field reset, DRL TV is going to take its last commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. When we return, the finale of the 2019 All-Star Race. Thomas Harmon, Chad Presnall looking to seal this thing up here as they have the fresh tires up front. But it's still anyone's race here. DRL TV returns in about 60 seconds.
Assist to the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Rayon Fowler into the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing.
Lead to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is going to touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save.
Look to the outside as Cronkite goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
Trying this contact though. As the line left of the racetrack, Chris Venner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schumacher, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
And welcome back to the 2019 All-Star event here at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Dynasty Racing League Cup Series. Thomas Harmon, Chad Presnall, John Theodore, Gary Cronenwet, and Bill Edwards are your top 5 after an unfortunate incident involving the 12, the 26, and a difference in coding, I guess is the best way to say it. Something called net code here in iRacing has claimed the 3 very, very fast race cars, Mike Springer and the 41 of Richard Lucky, and then, as I mentioned, the 26 of Steve Turner, which really gives us about 9 cars that still have a shot at winning this thing, and we're going to have 7 laps to go. Once we get the green flag, again, these green flag laps are the only ones that count. Anytime we get a yellow, those laps do not count, and we still have the opportunity to get a green-white checkered finish. But at the end of the day, we're starting to kind of run out of competitive cars here, as even Wade Hustad in 7th has a little bit of damage from that last caution. But right now we've got Thomas Harmon, Chad Presnall, John Theodore that have 15 laps on their tires. In fourth place, Gary and Bill have 8 laps, and behind them, everyone else has fresher tires. So, a plethora of different strategies, a plethora of different damage levels to some of these cars. And one thing that we do know for sure, though, Chad Presnall, Thomas Harmon will restart 1-2, and they will give it everything they have. We've seen Chad Presnall really. He and Thomas Harmon both have run an incredible race. Chad Presnall has probably passed the most cars here tonight and has been able to keep that Chevy relatively clean. So we'll see what he has for Thomas Harmon, who is our Stage 1 winner. So Thomas Harmon knows how to get it done here, Martin. Green flag just about ready to wave with 7 laps to go.
Yeah, what a shake-up. There's Gary Cronenwet back up in the top 3, or top 4. So he's hanging around. He's been collected in some things. Thomas Harmon gets the jump.
Yeah, and he elects the outside line here. Very interesting, as he will cut down just in front of Chad Presnall, leaving a little bit of a gap between 4th and 5th.
So the target is lap 119. And check the flag. 7 to go.
Right on board with Chad Presnall.
A couple of these guys, John Theodore and Gary had written them all around the car. Theodore goes into the grass.
Theodore in the grass, and Thomas Harmon.
Cronenwet's going to dip down. He gets bumped down below into the apron. Looks like he's out of it now.
But Thomas Harmon, I mean, he's in that position where he can block whatever lane he wants, but he's got to be careful. Trying to slam the door as Presnall tries to cross over. And Harmon slams the door on the 55. So the 55 and the 68 of Thomas Harmon. Again, they've got a little bit older tires than some of these other guys, but we've run so many, caution flags here. I'm not sure if it's going to make a difference, but Bill Edwards, who he and John Theodore Bill Edwards has the freshest tires here. He's going to look to the outside of Chad Presnall. And Wade Hustad is just behind him, and these are all teammates, S2R teammates, Thomas Harmon, Bill Edwards, and Wade Hustad, who has been an S2R affiliate all season long. So right now, it looks like John Theodore, Mike Springer might be the odd man out. Chad Presnall, he was teammates with Wade Hustad last year, but I'm not sure how many friends you have as we approach. How many laps to go here, Martin?
It's going to be 3. Yeah, but you just mentioned Mike Springer as the odd man out, but there's Mike Springer and Steve Turner. Those guys were involved in the last wreck, and that was a pretty hard hit for both those guys, and they're hanging right in with this group. Whoa! Bill Edwards tries to get low, makes contact with the rear end of the rear left end of the 55.
And tried to make room where there maybe wasn't quite enough room.
Theodore to the grass again. Yeah, Theodore is just cutting that exit of the tri-oval.
Now looking out the back bumper of Thomas Harmon, you said 2 laps to go here as he tries to break the draft.
Yeah, again, it looks like Bill Edwards made another little bit of contact with the 55 going into the turn. And Mike Springer dives all the way across that Toyota red, that red area for the Toyota advertisement, cuts in the grass.
This is the final lap, ladies and gentlemen. Getting word from RC, so this is the final lap. Chad Presnall trying to do anything he can to catch and pass, or at least get a bumper to Thomas Harmon. It's a 2-car race as they exit 3 and 4. And nobody's got anything for him. Thomas Harmon, not only does he win Stage 1, but he wins the 2019 All-Star event. And in Thomas Harmon fashion.
Well, there you go. We locked the field down for the results with that. Well, he actually turned that car. I thought maybe Presnall had gotten him, but no, he just turned that car and wiped it out to end it. There was a race to the line. I'm going back and looking at Springer and Springer and John Theodore coming across the line on top of each other, just in each other's cars almost. That's how close they are. And Springer just edges him out by 0.003 of a second. So that was a great finish for those two guys battling for 5th.
Well, considering the fact that Thomas Harmon probably won't be able to do much of a victory burnout, let's just go ahead and pull in Thomas
He's
Harmon.
been hit by almost every car on the track, it looked like, after that. Well, that's going to be a fun post-race picture, too. Yeah.
Right. We're going to pull in our all-star winner, Thomas Harmon. Do you have a copy, sir?
10-4, I got you.
Well, you were able to win Stage 1, holding off the likes of Wade Hustad, as you are still not done wrecking. And then at the end of that last stage, Stage 3, a lot of starts and stops, but in the end, you were able to use a little pit strategy and, use that last restart to your advantage, blocking aggressively the 55, Bill Edwards, and I can't remember who else was up there at that point. I believe, I know you and Wade Hustad had some good battles as well. So what does this race mean, this race win mean for you? And can you use any of this stuff for next week's event in the Charlotte 300?
Oh, yeah, it means a lot. I wasn't sure. I raced against Wade last night in a different league, and he was definitely tough. And riding behind him, I learned some things. And riding with these guys again, with these guys in general, and with Wade again, definitely learned some stuff that I'll take into next week's race and hopefully pull out another W.
Well, obviously next week's race is going to be very different. We're not going to have any of the very unique rules that we see here in the annual All-Star event. Once you had that stage win, you were able to really just coast for Stage 2, and Stage 3, was just absolutely lights out action from start to finish. We saw incredibly aggressive moves, people cutting the tri-oval. What kind of race do you expect next week when we come back to this track?
I think with points playing a role next week, things will calm down a little bit until you get to the end, and then I expect to see that all over again with whoever's left. It takes a lot of patience, and sometimes you have to be aggressive in order to make it up front like that, and especially to stay there, you got to throw those aggressive blocks and try to cut off the runs and try to give the line that's not right behind, that's a little bit trailing, you got to give them a little bit of draft, try to get them side by side with the car behind you, and there's a lot that goes into it, and it's got to be patient.
Well, Thomas Harmon, congratulations on your win. You are our Daytona champ, but I know you want to, win another race, that's not a restrictor plate race. And, you've proven here that Charlotte's, you got as good a shot as anybody else next week when we come back to this track for the Charlotte 300. Congratulations, sir. You put on a hell of a show, and give us any shout-outs that you have.
Shout-outs to you guys up in the booth for broadcasting it and allow us to show our fans what we can do. Sorry for the wreck there at the end. I actually lost it. I meant to do a little wobble, and it completely I lost it there. And then shout out to the admins who do this every week, come out and watch us in race control as well. As to our guys for being supportive and sticking with us, all the drivers and competitors out there as well who come out every week and allow us to field a decent-sized field for everybody. Spotter Dimitri up in the booth, and Avril for being on the car.
Awesome, Thomas. Well, again, we appreciate your time. We appreciate the show that you guys were able to put on, and congratulations. We will see you next week at the same time, at the same place, and hopefully with the same result.
Hope so.
All right. We will see you next week, sir. Have a good one.
You too.
And if we can, I'm going to try to bring in Chad Presnall, who finished second. Chad, do you have a copy, sir?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, this is Getty up in the DRL TV booth. First of all, congratulations. It's awesome to see you come back here. And, you weren't back in DRL for very long before you started, coming back and putting on that Chad Presnall type racing. Basically passing the most cars as per usual. And, right there at the end, what could you have done different to maybe get to Thomas's bumper or just get past him?
I'm gonna say that Thomas did an excellent job blocking. The only other thing I could have done to get around Thomas was to turn him into the infield, and I wasn't gonna quite do that. I thought about it a couple times, and I backed out of it. But he certainly was doing a top-notch job blocking. And then you also had Bill Edwards and Wade. I was trying to keep it Bay from behind to burn my right front off for the last 3 or 4 laps. So it was certainly intense.
Well, and we talked about it in the broadcast, Chad. Not only do you put on a hell of a show here tonight, but you also maybe learn a little bit. Will you be running next week in the Charlotte 300? And if so, what did you learn tonight that you can use towards that race next week?
We'll see what's going on. I might give it a shot next week. That's going to be a long race, but I'd say you could actually feel the car tonight. Feel a little bit of rotation, play off the right rear a little bit, so that's certainly good. That's something I look for in a race car when I want to drive it, gaining advantage. So there's a little bit of ground to play with there. I certainly entertain the thought of maybe making an appearance. Yeah.
Well, Chad, I can't tell you how awesome it is to have you back. You're one of those drivers that when I'm on the track with you, I respect the hell out of you. It's great to see you back out here throwing the stock car around just as good as anyone else can. Before we let you go, please give us any shouts that you have.
Hey, I appreciate the kind words, Giddy. Certainly a blast, as always, running DRL. JP, you, Martin, in the booth, everybody else puts on. All the drivers that come out, it's certainly a blast every time I get on the track here. Whether I like the Cup car or not, that's something totally different. But DRL has certainly got a great product. Always play.
Well, Chad, as I mentioned to Martin, we actually brought you up a few races ago. You can only take a racer out of the race for so long before you see the racer come back. It may not be the best car package in the world, but at the end of the day, you're a competitor, and it's good to see you come back here, compete at a very high level.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, bud. Well, I'll make a couple appearances here or there.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we see you next week, same time, same place, my man, and we will, hopefully talk to you again in the booth as a top 3 finisher.
Oh, yeah. Well, y'all have a good evening, guys.
All right. Take it easy, Chad. As we will bring in our 3rd place finisher, Mr. Bill Edwards. Bill Edwards actually raced his way in from the preliminary race, being a top 3 finisher, and he's able to finish 3rd here tonight. Bill, do you have a copy, sir?
Yes, sir. I got you.
Well, Bill, you were kind of quiet all night, but right at the end, you had those fresher tires. You were able to make some moves. Trying to get to the back of Chad there, trying to get to the back of Tom. Is there anything different? Is there anything you're replaying through your head that you would have done differently to maybe come away from this in either second or possibly as the victor?
Oh, maybe if I could have taken the high side away from them and got a nice run, but they were both doing a really good job of blocking each other, and then it seemed to fall back to me with a nice block too. So they were doing what they needed to do.
Well, Bill, you play a huge role in DRL. Almost everywhere you look, you are the key creator of Fatal Concepts paint. Almost everyone in this field, in every field that we go to, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, there are several of your paint schemes around. So you have a huge, reach into the league, but here in the Cup Series, you're a newer driver, so coming out here, finishing 3rd, staying out of trouble, what does that mean for you, going forward, potentially being a Cup driver full-time next year?
Oh, it means quite a bit. I mean, just the fact that racing in got me to start, and then getting on podium, it feels pretty good. It's definitely not a super easy car to drive or an easy track to drive it on. I mean, there's a lot of really sketchy moves that had to be made to get up
right.
here. So, no, it's fun. And Charlotte is one of my favorite tracks too. So, nope, it's good practice. That's for sure.
Well, Bill, before we let you go, obviously, give you the opportunity to get any shout-outs that you might have for the broadcast.
Sure. Give a shout out to you guys in the booth. I got to give a shout out to DRL, the league. James Pandoff and all the other admins and everybody all the work that goes into it every week. Martin Wenzel for all the graphics and that sort of stuff. I got to give a shout out to S2R, which we put some practice laps in, and that helps every week. It's a nice way to gauge how we're actually doing. I'm even going to give a shout out to SGK Racing because I know you guys put out a lot of the practice sessions as well, and having you guys run laps with it just helps us, makes us all better as a whole. So,
I appreciate it. Well,
okay,
and
then my daughter wants to say something as well. I have no idea what it is yet, so.
Hi, Michelle and Grandma Pam.
Oh yeah, I better give a shout out to my mom and my girlfriend as well.
Awesome. Well, Bill, congratulations on your top 3. And if you're not going to say it, I'll say it again. You're also the creator, or the head of Fatal Concepts Paint. So if anybody, let anyone in the audience, if they want a custom-made paint for any car that they, that's available in iRacing, tell us how to get there.
Yep, fatalconcepts.com. It'll take you right to the Trading Paints page, or you can hit me up on Discord or in the iRacing message.
All right, Bill Edwards, we appreciate your time. Congratulations on your 3rd, and we will see you tomorrow in the Grand National All-Star event. And hopefully, you're in a similar spot as one of our top finishers.
Yep, that's what I'm shooting for.
All right, good evening, Bill.
All right, thanks.
Well, Martin, besides, that last stage certainly set up for, we had some pacing laps, but we also had some crazy, intense final green flag laps. Do you have any closing thoughts for us as we wrap up our All-Star event here at Charlotte Motor Speedway?
I think tomorrow night's race will be just as exciting. Much different track, much smaller track, I think, Lucas Oil.
Mm-hmm.
And then, next week, this race is going to be wild. I think it's going to be, again, hopefully people will be more patient. It's 200 laps. It's the longest race of the season. But as Thomas said, that as we get towards the end of the race, all bets are off, just like tonight, and we're probably going to have quite a few yellows to finish it out. Guys cutting through the grass and driving all over the place, just trying to get positions. So it's going to be an exciting couple of weeks here at Charlotte. That's all I got.
Right on. Well, this has been the 2019 All-Star race. Our next race of this series that will feature these drivers will be next Monday here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Again, Martin mentioned it is one of the longer races, if not the longest race that we will have all season. But that doesn't mean the intensity, the drama, and the incredible, crazy racing will be anything less than what we saw tonight. 200 laps. Make sure that you tune in next Monday to root for your driver, or just have a good look at great racing. The next time you'll see DRL TV is tomorrow night when the Grand National drivers take on Lucas Oil Raceway, a little bit of a half-mile flat oval, and that will be the All-Star event tomorrow. Again, it could be unique rules. You never know. Make sure that you tune in. And as always, these are all the names that are involved in DRL and DRL TV. Got to thank Martin next to me. Got to thank all the drivers and viewers. You are obviously the most important piece of this puzzle. I have to thank you. If you like this broadcast or any driver that competes in DRL, make sure that you hit the subscribe and the bell icon. That way you can be notified anytime we go live, and you can watch your favorite driver or your favorite racing. My name is Getty Buckner. Again, alongside Martin Wenzel, it's our pleasure to bring you this live coverage each and every week. We will see you tomorrow night in Lucas Oil Raceway on DRL TV. Thanks for tuning in.